faces that we have a quorum. Well, kick us off. I think I'm Dave Bowman. I'm the Deputy Director. I believe this is the second meeting of this committee, and we've got a nice agenda that Mitchell has put together for you to go over some of the processes and the rating criteria. Before I kick it off, Mitchell, do we need to do a formal roll call?
Yes, we do.
Do you have the list of names in front of you? You can read off.
I'll pull that up here in just a moment.
Okay, well, while we're waiting, I'll go ahead and see if there's any public comment. It looks like everybody on the call is actually a member, so I'm thinking the answer is no, but is there any public comment out there? All right, Mitchell, do you have that roll call?
I'll have it up here momentarily. My apologies, I'm having some technical difficulties on my end. Let you know as soon as I have it.
Okay,
There we go. Dave, do you want me to share it on my screen?
Just read the names and have people say here or not here.
Okay, I'll go down the list. So Dave, obviously you're here as the committee chair. Major Ansari.
Good afternoon, everyone present.
Senator Gonzalez. Not here. Representative Mabry.
Here.
And Debbie Stafford.
Here.
Lori Jenkins. And Thomas Hernandez. Next is Kenneth Bowling.
Present.
Amber King.
Present.
Lauren Sharp.
Here.
And Commissioner DeSorio. I think he emailed me saying he wasn't going to be able to make it today. And that's it.
And I see Karen Valenzuela. Did you call her name?
That's my legislative aide.
Oh, okay. I got you. All right. Well, everybody should have received a copy of the minutes from the last meeting. Any proposed edits? And if not, I'd like to get a motion to approve.
So moved.
We have a second?
By Debbie Stafford.
Who is the second?
Amber Bartholomew.
Okay, great. All right. And with that, I will turn it over to Mitch to go over the program policies.
Sounds good. So I'm going to go ahead and share the document. I actually shared it out earlier this afternoon if folks have had the opportunity to take a look at that. If not, I'll go ahead and share my screen once I can. Sorry, I have to stop sharing for a second, and then I'll pull the document up and we'll walk through the changes. There we go. And I know it's listed on the committee agenda as two separate action items, but really we can probably group this into one. So the first change, and we discussed this during the first committee meeting, was changing each one of the questions that I have displayed on my screen. Well, first, let me ask, can everybody see my screen?
Yeah, I was just going to ask you to make that a little bigger, Mitch.
Got it. Oh, and my apologies. I am sharing. Wrong screen. There we go. So this is the rating criteria. During the first committee meeting, we discussed making each one of these questions, instead of a yes, no, 1 point per answer, making them a scale from 0 to 5, each one of these question points, which we've done. And you can see those adjustments in terms of the total number of points within the first column of the rating criteria. I'm currently working on a rubric that will define each scale from 0 to 5 for each one of these questions. That'll help guide you once that comes out and the application's open, and we can actually start scoring each question in these applications. I'm currently developing that. Once it's ready, I'll go ahead and share it, and I can actually walk folks through if they need a walkthrough on how to use that tool, or if they're unfamiliar with Google Sheets. I guess, is there any questions related to that change? Again, the change is a scale from 0 to 5. Even though it says 0 to 20 within the first column, that's just because there's 4 questions for that section. Okay, if there are no questions related to that change, the next change was adding, go ahead, Dave.
I just have a comment. If you're looking at this and thinking that one thing should be weighted more than another, then now's the time to kind of consider that and have the flexibility. We don't have to assume that all questions are created equally. So if there's something that's really important and we want to make that a 10-point question, we have the flexibility to do that. So just want to put that out there.
And if you change your mind, you can always reach out to me and we can discuss it as a group if we feel that as applications come in and we actually see some of the projects that we're going to be starting and reviewing, we can always discuss it as a group later on and decide whether or not those changes need to be made to the rating criteria. The next change we made to the rating criteria was adding a section related to a rural focus. It was originally discussed as geographic diversity, but we went ahead and changed that language to rural focus because the projects that come in may not have the actual geographic separation that would go along with the definition of geographic diversity. We added it to the rating criteria because we felt that's actually the best way when applications come through, and this actually starts playing out when we see the different types of projects that are going to come in, to actually grade which communities may need this funding more than others, just based on their access to resources and separation from major metropolitan areas. The language within these 2 questions, it's purposely written this way to add subjectivity to the reviewer based on the nature of the applicants as well as the projects that come through, instead of giving a hard definition on this is rural, this is urban. So hopefully these make sense. And just beneath that section is an explanation for why we added that section in, just to give everybody a little more background on what this means and the purpose of it. Go ahead, Senator.
The senator's coming in to the meeting.
My apologies. I thought it was a hand.
No. But Senator Gonzalez is now in the meeting. Hi, Senator.
Apologies that I was a few minutes late.
And just to recap everything I just went through for folks who are just joining, we went ahead and changed the each question from being a 1-point question to a scale that can give us further or lesser weight on each question based on, I guess, the subjectivity of the reviewer, and to be able to more accurately rate these applications, because we don't know the nature of the projects that are coming in yet, and this gives us a lot of leeway to be able to distinguish which communities may need these funds more than others. As well as we added a section related to a rural focus to help make sure that these funds are evenly distributed throughout the state and not necessarily focused within major metropolitan areas. So I'll stop there and see if anybody has any questions. If no questions, once applications start coming in, go ahead, Senator.
Yes, just the scale is helpful and I appreciative of that. I guess the one question that I have is if hypothetically there were 10 applications from the metro area and 2 from rural communities, not to say that that would happen, but if it did, would the manner that we're putting forward now allow, would that then say that, okay, 50% of the money then goes to said 2 projects and the 10 organizations that submitted for the metro area now divide up the 50% or not? I apologize if that has already been addressed.
No, that makes a lot of sense, and thank you for that question. And I think that's why it's important to add subjectivity for the reviewer, because we don't necessarily know if situations like that are going to be seen within this first application cycle. So that'll give us the leeway to determine whether or not, or I should say the best way in which these funds can be distributed in a situation such as that, instead of giving a cold hard definition of this is rural, this is urban, and rural will have a higher grade or higher rating than urban in those cases. So I know that's not much of an answer, but I think the answer lies within subjectivity of the reviewer. And when we do rate these applications, we're going to take the average of each rating and we're going to discuss it as a group to determine whether or not changes need to be made to that final rating.
Super helpful. Thank you.
Absolutely.
And this is Debbie. To add to that, because it's a great question, I'm wondering if there should be some allowance for density for the population being served and for the lack of services, within a proximity, because I could see that weighting out whether you would just do a mathematical percentage between metro and rural. So I hope we have some latitude to have that consideration.
Absolutely, and that's a great point too. And again, that goes back to the subjectivity. When after the first meeting, when I started designing these questions, I started adding exactly that. We were defining population density as well as urban versus rural. But then when we look at our list of municipalities, there are situations that could arise in which the funds may not necessarily be getting where they need to go in certain situations if we follow those rules black and white, plain and simple. So subjectivity to the reviewer, I think we can determine where the funds may need to go specifically once those specific applications and projects start coming in. The definition, just to give you an idea, the actual definition between rural versus urban, I think is 5,000. According to the state demographer's office, what we put in this note here is 20,000 at or below 20,000, because that will allow municipalities such as Durango, for example, to get a higher score when applying within this program. Just to give you another example, there are some municipalities that are located within major metropolitan areas that technically have some of the lowest populations in the state. So by making this more subjective for the reviewer, we can actually add the human element to that review process to make sure situations like that are addressed appropriately, if that makes sense. Any other questions? not, we'll go to the final change within the program policies. And my apologies, I'm trying to find it. If you can still see my screen, it's the sentence that I'm highlighting right now, referencing a program cap. Excuse me, sorry, wrong sentence right here. So annually, the program funding will be assessed to determine a maximum cap amount for the program awards. This cap will be identified within the program NOFA. So the reason this is worded this way is because on average, the program accumulates $225,000 a year. What this does is well, first it helps ensure that funds will be evenly distributed throughout the state, especially outside of major metropolitan areas. And it also takes into consideration if there's ever a year where the funding dramatically changes, whether it be higher or lower than that annual 225,000. So what we'll do, so for this first application cycle, just as an example, we'll say there's a 20% cap for that 1.3 million that currently resides within the total program funding, meaning when an application is accepted and award is made, that award cannot exceed 20% of that 1.3 million. But if a situation were to ever come up where that dollar amount dramatically increases or decreases, we can adjust that percentage within the application itself instead of putting it here. Does anybody have any questions related to that? If not, that is our final change to the program policies and rating criteria. I'll go ahead and bring us back to our slide deck here. So next up on the agenda is just a discussion of future meetings and next steps.
Mitchell, do we need to formally adopt the?
Yes, we do. My apologies. Yes.
Okay, well, put forth a motion or ask for a motion to accept the policies as written or suggest edits.
So moved. Lauren Sharp.
We have a second?
Second, Debbie Stafford.
All right, program policies are approved. And Mitchell, I think that additional guidance you're putting out won't need formal approval. It's just guidance for what constitutes a 5 versus a 0. So we can just send that out via email once that's put together.
That's correct.
Okay, do we have any discussion of future meetings and next steps?
My initial thought on this, if I can add to it, is because we've now adopted the rating criteria and program policies, is I can start developing the first application. I remember from the first committee meeting that we wanted to take a look at the first application together as a group. We discussed the medium being email, so I can email a copy of what that application would look like in terms of the content that we're requesting applicants provide. And I will also share out once the rating tool is fully developed and finalized, I'll go ahead and share a copy of that out to each committee member as well too.
And is that just a review and comment, or do we need to formally approve the application, which I don't think we normally do?
We do not need to formally approve the application.
Okay, so we'll just make sure everybody has an opportunity to comment, provide edits, questions, and we can do that all via email, I assume, without having another meeting. Is that correct?
That is correct.
Okay.
So point of order then, once you've got your RFP to a point that it's approved, then are we going to be meeting prior to putting that out there? Or will we wait until the RFP is out and we see how many applications are back, and then perhaps we meet to discuss the strategy of dividing that responsibility up.
And this can always change, but my initial thought is the next committee meeting will likely be after we close out the application cycle. Our ratings are assigned as a group, or we have the averages of the ratings for each application. We convene again as a committee and we discuss each rating and determine whether or not changes will be needed to be made. Prior to that, we can communicate via email or offline individually. If folks have questions related to the application tool, how to use it, or specific questions related to each application.
One more quick ask then. Who does the review to give the initial rating? Does the committee do that or does staff do that?
Each committee member.
Okay, thank you.
Brett?
Yeah, and just to add a little more to this, because I know Mitchell and I have spoke a lot about it. He intends to draft the application in a way that tracks with the rating so that it should be as easy as possible to look at the criteria that you'll be rating while looking through the application, and hopes it simplifies the process for the committee. So I know he hasn't put it together yet, but when you share it out, I think it should look similar to the rating criteria Google sheet that you'll be filling in later on.
Absolutely. In fact, it's questions taken directly from our rating criteria, and it's going to be a drop down 0 to 5 in terms of how you rate it. Once you make that selection, that rating has been made for that application question. What I'm working on right now is defining what is 0 through 5. And I'm going to make sure those definitions are for guidance purposes only and they stay general to continue to allow subjectivity for each reviewer.
And on that note, we can play it by ear too, based on the applications we get in. I don't think this will happen, but hypothetically, if we were to get a mass number of hundreds of applications, that would be overwhelming for every member to review 100 applications. Then we'll come up with some alternative process or some way to divide up the work and get it done. I don't think we'll get there, but this is the first time we're open to changing our processes. Are there any questions?
Nope.
Any other items for business or discussion? All right, with that, I'll call for a motion to adjourn.
So moved.
I'll second it.
Okay, so we got a first by Javier and a second by Debbie.
Debbie.
All right. Well, thanks everybody. Have a good rest of your day and a half hour of your life back.
Thank you very much. Bye-bye.
Okay.
Thank you. Thank you.